Yes, I see that. All right. Let me go check. Yes, I see that. All right. Let me go check. Yes, I see that. All right. Let me go check. Yes, I see that. All right. Let me go check. Yes, I see that. All right. Let me go check. Yes, I see that. All right. Let me go check. Yes, I see that. All right. Let me go check. Yes, I see that.
All right. Fantastic. Uh, and this is Russ McGee, and welcome to the Here Now Festival. This is the 2021 Here Now Festival, and we're all virtual this year. And I am the festival director. And I just want to take a moment to actually thank our sponsors, Earplay and the Bloomington Writers Guild, SAG-AFTRA, also the Podium Audio, and many others who have made this event possible, and all of the many people who have been working very hard behind the scenes to make this possible and bring it live to you virtually. And I hope that everyone is enjoying the festival. And there are many, many more events over the next 3 days, counting today. So please do check them out, and we hope to see you. And from there, I would like to introduce Brandon Peters.
Hello there. I'm Brandon Peters. I'm, of course, a podcaster. My show is called The Brandon Peters Show, which, yes, is named after myself. It's a podcast that deals in a lot of big film geek, film lover, deals with talking about films with film writers, creators of all sorts of mediums. I like comic book writers, musicians, things like that. And I also dabble in other things. It's a Monday through Friday kind of show where I drop different segments where we'll also talk about vintage genre TV shows one day. I'll do music video reviews, and there's also over on like YouTube, not it extends beyond podcasting. I'll do unboxing things for my review copies as I review home video physical media for the website Why So Blue. So I kind of share that stuff on there as well. And that's a little bit just of my podcast. If you go to brandonpetershow.com or anywhere podcasts are found, you can just type my name, Brandon Peters, and you'll find it. And there's a whole lot of stuff there. Maybe you'll like something. But nice to be here. Thanks, Russell. Thank you. Here now.
And Rachel, I think you're next.
Yes. Hello, my name is Rachel Friend, and I am on two different shows. I co-host and produce the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. We are a weekly pop culture, geek culture, entertainment podcast where we talk about all things geeky and nerdy, all from the female geek perspective. And we can be found pretty much wherever you find podcasts and at the fiveishfangirls.com. And that show's been running for slightly over 7 years. We just celebrated our 7th birthday a couple weeks ago. And every other week you can find me on Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, where myself and two other hosts, we are watching and reviewing every single Academy Award winner for Best Picture in chronological order. And we just celebrated actually our first year of that. And again, Gold Standard can be found pretty much wherever you find podcasts and on Facebook at Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast.
And my name is Brandon Wentz, and I am the producer at Crit Show Studios, which is a company that we started that puts out a series of podcasts. The main one being The Crit Show, which is an actual play podcast that focuses on Monster of the Week, which is like Buffy or Supernatural, Ash versus the Evil Dead. And a big part of the way that we run our games is that you learn how to play them while you listen, but we try to also edit it like a radio play so that you don't have a lot of rules talk, but you do get the rules once as we go through, so you learn as you're listening. And then with the studio, we also make a lot of our Patreon content, which is other role-playing games or advice games about how to be a better GM, how to design interesting backstories for characters, things like that. And you can find all of that at thecritshowpodcast.com. And we actually just celebrated our 3-year anniversary 2 weeks ago.
All right, fantastic. Welcome, and thank you all three for being here today. Can you actually talk a little bit about like how you all got started?
Okay, I'll go first since I round robin here.
Yes.
All right. I got started. It kind of branched off from my writing. I was doing film retrospectives for Forbes' Scott Mendelson when he had his own blog before he became to that. And I jumped off to my own and one of my goals at the time was that I wanted to be on a podcast, a guest on a podcast. Thought that'd be fun. And I was right. It was. And after being a regular on a show for about a year and a half, I started my own show, which was called Cult Cinema Cavalcade. I have a bit of an audio background. I went to Ball State University telecommunications department. So and I worked on film sets and things like that. So I did know my audio a bit, but started that show on my own with a co-host, and we ran it for 5 years, and it ended just about a year ago exactly now, and went on to start my own show, which I talked about earlier, but it leapt from writing and things, so it kind of went from there for me.
And either one, Rachel?
I too have my college education gave me some tools that at the time I had no idea this is what I was going to be using it for, but I have both my undergrad and my master's degree in media arts from Indiana University. But I got into doing podcasts, mostly because I had made some friends, some mutual friends through the Doctor Who fandom. And we spent a lot of time hanging out online, talking to each other about Doctor Who and the other things that we were excited about. This is all the way back in 2013. And it finally got to the point where it's like, well, we're just hanging out and talking about all these geeky things. Why don't we just record it, put it online? 7 years later and almost 330 shows. Here we are. At least that's as far as the Five-ish Fangirls. Gold Standard came out of Nick, DJ Nick, who does a bunch of other shows. Had one of his shows, Happiness and Darkness, with the superhero podcast. He had me on to talk about Captain Marvel, and we connected through some mutual friends, and Zan, who's our other host, Nick knew from having her on his show, and again through mutual acquaintances also in the podcasting realm. And Nick had this idea that, there's a lot of shows out there that talk about, your best movies of all time and all those things, but as far as he knew, nobody had taken on doing the chronological order thing. And he enjoyed having Zan and I on his show so much. He's like, yeah, well, I'll reach out to them and see if they'll do it. And we both said yes, and here we are a year later, and we're still going strong. So
my background is also theater related. I have my master's in acting from the University of Georgia. And I spent the bulk of the last 20 years just kind of traveling around, going to different repertory theaters and working. And we had to move to Texas. And at the time, there wasn't a lot going on there stage wise. And I actually got involved with one of the sponsors with Earplay. I was an actor on a number of their projects. I was also the voice director for a number of them. And while I was working on those projects, I was traveling a lot, driving around a lot. And I had asked someone for I need something to listen to. And someone suggested a podcast. And the podcast was about, it was a actual play podcast. And I had been into role-playing games when I was in college, but once I had graduated and got into grad school, I didn't have time. And this reignited my love of them. And the thing that really struck me is that as I was driving, 20, 30 hours a week on the road just by yourself, this show gave me the sense that I was actually sitting at the fifth seat at their table. I felt like I knew them. I felt like I was part of the game. And I was like, I want to play again. And as I started to play, I realized how important that feeling was to me. And I wanted to try to create something similar to make it, to people who are going through a hard time or on long strips or, whatever, having that feeling of this is inclusive. I'm here. I'm at the table, which is also part of why we make sure to teach the game as we go. And so once I decided I wanted to make that podcast, I sat down. I had no experience with podcasts, but luckily my college roommate was a sound designer, and he teaches at a master's program for sound. And I spent the next 6 months just off and on, every third Saturday, learning how to edit from him and work audio equipment. And then once I felt like I had that under wraps, we sat down to record the first episode.
Brandon Wentz, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and this is a little off the cuff, but hey, I know you also do a little bit of cosplaying as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I got into that when I first started going to different conventions, and I got involved with a group that would cosplay for charity, go to different hospitals, raise money. And for me, a big part of it was just fascinating how much when you encapsulate the character, people will just talk to you and treat you like the character. The number of people who come up to you and just talk to you as if you're the character from the book. They'll ask you questions. Why did you do this thing in this moment in the movie? Why would you do that? They get so passionate and connected to it that it really makes it a joy to do, because it's obviously, if you're taking the time to build a costume or the resources to buy a costume, it's something that you obviously love. And so it's another way to connect with people who have a love of the same genres that you have.
Cool. And Gang, you've been all at this for a while now, and I've been fortunate to work with you in one way or another. And can you just talk about any lessons that you've learned along the way, things that you could help as far as imparting, as far as people that are just getting started and want to do podcasting?
Well, here in Indianapolis, where I'm located, I help co-manage a group called Podcast Indie, where we get together. So I talk about this stuff like all the time. And one of the things that constantly comes up about starting podcasts and stuff is like equipment and things. And a lot of things, just get it off the ground, just start doing it. And being consistent is both important to you doing it, but also to the expectations of your audience to always know where to come back to. Having some schedule. It doesn't have to be like daily or anything. I mean, as long if you're once a month, even they know to expect you around that time of month. But getting and starting off with consistency is pretty important as well, I would think.
Yeah, I too am part of the group. Brandon and I are like the moderators of the Podcast Indie group on Facebook. But even if you're not in Indie, anybody can join. So anyone out there wants to join the group, please feel free to ask to join. But yeah, consistency and really picking a topic that you're going to enjoy talking about, whether it's something very specific, like a specific TV series or books or something, or even if you're doing general, something more broad, like what we do, at least with the Five-ish Fangirls, where, it's general pop culture, but, we'll do all sorts of things, but we always want to make sure that whatever we're talking about is something that we will enjoy talking about, because that comes through, especially with podcasting being, mostly audio. I know some video podcasts are becoming more popular, but this really isn't an audio only medium, and your enthusiasm will come through in your audio regardless of anything else. So if you're not enjoying yourself, your audience isn't going to enjoy listening to it either.
Yeah. I think one of the big things that I learned when I started, I made myself listen to the first episode of 50 different actual play podcasts because I wanted to see like, okay, what's out there? What exists? How are they built? And the thing that I learned from that is obviously the quality of your audio. You want to be as strong as you possibly can because if it's a topic you're not interested in, you're not going to listen anyway. But there were some stories I was super engaged in, but it was hard to listen to the audio. And since we are at the now here, this festival, I think it's important to emphasize that how much the quality of your audio, especially starting out, can give you a boost to new listeners. And I think the other element too is that knowing, kind of as Rachel said, knowing not just what your audience is, but the type of engagement that they're going to interact with. Like there's Instagram, there's TikTok, there's all these different things that you can use as you start to launch your show, and knowing who you're building your show for, what that audience is, and having a sense of which of those things is actually going to hit that audience so that you're not putting extraneous energy into areas that may not be found by the people that you're trying to find.
And you dived in a little bit here, Brandon Wentz, about the fact that the technology, and any one of you dive in and just talk about like some of the pitfalls, things that you learned as you went along, and some things that might help, again, anybody that's starting out, and war stories, what worked, what didn't work.
Shoes. Well, I mean, you'll start your show, and no matter what, like as much as you ace your first episode, you're going to go back, and that's going to be very primitive to what your show actually became. That's comes from listeners. That comes from going through the motions. It comes from finding your footing. If you do a show that's kind of a variety, you're going to have segments that you thought were great that go away, just kind of disappear and whatever. And that's A-okay. That's exploring your grounds, finding what people listen to, finding what you're enjoying or what you feel most comfortable discussing or producing, things like that. Like I found when I first started, I wanted a good sounding really well produced episode. And my first episode of my previous show, when I debuted my own full on show, I over edited the heck out of that. Like I wanted to take the word like out of everybody's mouth, in addition to the uhs and the ahs and all that stuff. And I went a bit overboard. It sounds human, but I go back and I was like, I should have let that draw out. But I'm personally, like Wentz over here, I'm big on editing. So if I listen to a new show and stuff, if it doesn't sound like well produced or something, I might be turned off right away. So that, being audio people here, you have an advantage, I think, to begin with. So we don't need to tell you about some of these things. But I some of the pitfalls, don't be against using the social media. Like, that's a free advertising thing. I know you might I just want to do my podcast and go home. Well, some of the right people can find it through those, I got to go on Facebook or Twitter or whatever to post this, but they're there. They do help. They do find you, and you'll find that each realm has a different audience all its own. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, and I think to bounce off of that idea of, over editing or under editing or editing, I think it's important when you first start out to spend a little time, record some audio that you don't plan on using even for your podcast, and spend some time editing it, because just like writing, you're going to have your own editing voice. We could take the same 10 minutes of audio and give it to all four of us, and you're going to end with a different product, and it's going to have a different feel to it. And I think that so much can be given, and a lot of the products that people, watching this panel make deal with the same idea of the timing of comedy, the timing of drama. And if that's something that comes into effect with your podcast, like it does with ours, that's very important to be aware of, so that you're not stepping on your own moments by making them too fast or letting something linger too long.
Rachel, do you have anything to add there?
No, I think they both took the words right out of my mouth on that one.
That's fair. Okay. Well, what about unexpected pluses, things that have worked for you? I mean, Brandon Peters, you started talking about social media. Like, what are some things that you have found that have worked and have been advantageous?
Well, one thing I learned real quick with my new show, because I started just posting, I used to just post a link to where you could listen to it, but I started posting like at least 5 different streaming places. And there's a little site called Bitly, which can shorten those links that you copy, and it helps a lot. But one thing I've taken my advantage is just getting people's attention on a regular basis, not overboard, not like a post every hour or something, but my show runs, Monday through Friday. So I have something to post of content. And one thing that I decided to do, which I don't know if many other podcasts do, I started making short little videos, little comedy sketches, or just me talking to promote the show for the coming week or the coming episode. And they've been like a little 24-hour film festival for me. So that's like something really different that I tried with this show. And it came off a whim on like a Sunday morning when my show was going to post the next day. And I called my guest and said, "You want to do this video together?" And we did, like 2 minutes long, but people tend to like those. I tend to have people who just are fans of those and not even listening to my podcast, but it's another way to get people's attention to see the show, or maybe they might check it out, or they might just randomly, someone might like the video and stumble into your podcast. But that's something I'm trying out. Some videos way more successful than others, but it's added a layer of fun and a layer of creativity and something unique to my show.
A few questions, so let me pull those up for you. One of them right off is, what are good ways to grow your podcast?
Have guests and guests on other podcasts. That's a way. Like, when I first started this show, I started going for people I didn't have, try to get people I didn't have normally before. And I had a blogger who was pretty popular in the horror community, and I gained like 30 followers just on social media and stuff from that, and had people commenting about the episode on Twitter and stuff. I've had another other people that do that. And then those people, if they're podcasters or whatnot, they invite you on their show too. So reach out, come back. Someone might hear you on their show, bring you to theirs. But networking around the podcasting world is probably the simplest one. It's just to guest with your other podcasters and see what you got. Go outside your niche that your show is. Bring someone from left field over and see how they are on your show. And you might get invited to a left field show and introduce people to what you're all about.
Yeah, networking is a huge the word of mouth is your best friend when it comes to getting the word out about your show. If you've got friends, family members that are supportive and can drop it into conversations without you knowing, even better. My husband, he's told me that he'll mention that I podcast occasionally when it's appropriate in things, even if he doesn't necessarily listen to all of our shows. But yeah, not working with fellow podcasters can be very advantageous and tends to be a win-win situation. Going outside of your niche can work as long as it still kind of makes sense. That's the thing. Like if at least in my opinion, because we're a general pop culture podcast as far as the Five-ish Fangirls are concerned, we've had all sorts of people on, not just other podcasters. We've had authors, we've had YouTubers on. But they're maybe not necessarily obvious, but they still kind of fit into that general pop culture envelope, at least for us. At least I don't think it would make sense for us to have a politician on, I guess, unless they're a known geek. Maybe it would it needs to still fit into your wheelhouse, I think, at least a little bit. Otherwise, your listeners may be like, well, this is just weird.
Stacey
one thing,
Abrams loves Doctor Who, Rachel.
Well, there you go. And just know that sometimes if you guest on someone else's show, though, you may end up with a second show.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think speaking as someone who doesn't have a show that is easily accessible to having guests, because it's a linear story with the same characters. The big thing we've found that's been very beneficial is finding other shows and doing episode drops. Where we give them the first episode of our show, they drop it on their RSS feed, and vice versa. And we put a little tag at the beginning of it saying, hey, I listened to the show and this is why I really like it, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other thing too is, we've talked about what is your niche? What is it? And when I think being aware of that, when you first start to pick your show, whatever it is you're going to do, what your topic's going to be, like for us, Monster of the Week, Powered by the Apocalypse, is way, way smaller than Dungeons and Dragons. So you would think, well, why wouldn't you do Dungeons and Dragons? There's a lot more people who are familiar with that game, who play that game. But we're also hitting a market that doesn't get any attention. And so people who are looking for indie alternative games, they don't have a lot of representation when it comes to actual plays. And so that has drawn us a lot of listeners as well.
Here's another question for the three of you, because it's going to come on different topics. Do you ever worry about copyright, specifically like with takedowns and referencing playing samples from shows or movies, or even with different games, Brandon Wentz?
The games we're not worried about, because so far we've had interviews with all of the games creators. They come on and give an interview, and they're happy that we're doing it because it's exposing more people to their product. And then for anything else, all of our music and stuff we make in-house. So the only thing we would have to worry about is the actual copyrighted game. But so far we've checked with all of them before we've produced anything.
And Brandon Peters, how do you deal with that as far as with movies and stuff? Because we've done a few things as far as you've had me on and looked at Legend of the Werewolf or something like that. How do you deal with that?
Well, for my new show, I've been trying to go all legit. I had someone compose my theme music and interstitial music and stuff like that, so I have that at my home to use. I do use like trailer audio in mine, and it has really been a problem yet because that's a piece of marketing, which is kind of like, hey, we're promoting this kind of thing. It has been a worry. I've been more worried about it with my social media than anything when I make my videos. So my episodes will run a movie during the week, and at the end of the week there's a music video review. And I usually want to, with my commercials with it, I use music from that. But what I found to get around that is I find covers of people doing it on YouTube, and it doesn't pick it up because it's not the same audio. That's been a bit of a workaround. Clips from movies and stuff, dialogue, I don't know how they would sweep to pick that up, so I would be less concerned about that. Music, I wouldn't even mess too much. But if you could, I think there are tweaks where you could play it at like a 1.5 speed and it might not recognize it or something. I don't know if I should be saying that, but but I would just if you're questioning it, then probably err on the side of most cautious. But I currently haven't been using anything other than trailer audio, which hasn't really had an issue. And I usually put it through do my episodes on YouTube as well, and I'll upload it there before I get it to the pod streams, just because they have a thing that sweeps for copyright now, and you can put it through there and see if it picks up anything from your episode. And sometimes it picks up stuff and it's like, it's not going up in the you can't be monetized in the Ukraine, sorry. Like, yeah. So and just pay, because sometimes you get flagged, but you look at the flag and it's like, oh, okay, fine, sorry Uganda, you're not getting my episode, or something like that. It might be very minimal with that. So, and sometimes very weird things get picked up, but yeah.
How about you, Rachel, especially like dealing with Buffy or Doctor Who or anything like that?
Yeah, usually clips when it's just speaking don't seem to get caught. At least as far as what I've noticed from like our RSS feed, we use Libsyn to host our, the MP3s that people will download on their apps on their phone or whatever. If they don't seem to have any sort of copyright detection, but we also put our shows up on YouTube because we do have a few listeners that aren't tech savvy enough to be able to do the whole app download phone thing. So they're just content just to listen to it on YouTube, which is totally fine. Plus it's a nice backup to have as well. And 99% of the time, it will happen just like what Brandon just said, where it'll be like, sorry, you're not going to, you can have this video up, but you're not going to get paid for it. We don't get ad revenue from that YouTube channel anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's like, oh, sorry, you're not going to get paid. Well, I'm not getting paid anyway. So I'm so sorry you're taking away money I'm not getting. But every now and then, yeah, it'll be like, oh, this has been blocked in certain countries, and they're just the most random countries that if we really dug into our stats, we may get a listener from that random country. So again, not a big deal. Once in a blue moon, I will use a piece of music and it will get flagged and it will get completely blocked on YouTube completely. It tends to be music it's just, it's not playing over anything. It's just the music. I can go in and YouTube has built into their whatever that you can go and mute that part, and then the video will play just fine. So it's like, oh, well, sorry, you're not going to hear that 10 seconds of that Van Halen song that I used. You're just going to have to go find the official YouTube video on the Van Halen channel and go listen to it if you really want to hear it. So, but yeah, it doesn't really hurt because we're not making money on YouTube. So, and as far as I know, most of the major platforms for the RSS feeds don't have any sort of copyright checking that I'm aware of.
Might as well jump.
And we have a question from friend Bonnie here, and she's asking, what are your favorite conventions, festivals, or cons, and what are some benefits to actually taking part in those?
Andy PopCon.
PopCon. 1000% PopCon
Yeah.
because they treat us podcasters very well. They have a every year they've tried to grow the podcasting. They hold an award. They've had an award ceremony for the last like 5 years or so. They do live shows, which is podcasters just merely need to sign up. You don't even have to go to the con to get there to do a live version of your show, which you get a recording of to use, and you get to be with an audience as well. But it's people are interested in podcasts. PopCon leans a bit more. They're the one with a little more internet focus than everybody else. They get YouTubers as celebrity guests as well, and a lot of like voice acting talent and things like that, and podcasters. But we appreciate the 7 people that come to see us podcasters there. But we do, I mean, we do get treated. There's a very big respect for the podcasters. They don't throw us in a corner or be like, oh, here they come. It's like we get treated very kindly and very well. And it's exciting to go and be there. And I'll tell you what, as a podcaster there, like every day you leave that convention feeling like a rock star and you go out to the empty streets, you're like, oh, I'm going home. So I don't know. But that's my opinion on PopCon.
I would say C2E2 and Dragon Con are the big ones for us, because Dragon Con has a whole line of podcast programming, and then they also have gaming programming. So depending on what your podcast is about, you might find yourself in 2 different tracks. And then C2E2, it's close enough for them to consider us local. And you have such a wide variety of pop culture fans at C2E2 that it's been a really good place to find listeners.
And actually, I remember from our conversation before the panel, and this I think will hit both Rachel and Brandon Peters. You had a horror story that you shared about Fort Wayne and something that happened there and how you dealt with that on the fly. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So Fort Wayne PopCon they attempted to hold it in a different city. It wasn't like instead of, it was an additional PopCon that year, trying to branch out.
It was a spinoff.
Spinoff. It was the short-lived spinoff. But what happened there is they tried to, do a similar show to what they normally did. And the week it came up, they informed me that like, oh, we're not going to have a booth for you because we don't have the room for it. And then I found out then they're like, well, could you do more than one show each day for yours? Because we don't have enough people signed up for this. And then like my producer wasn't able to make it. And then my co-host was like, oh, go on, screw this. So I was like, you know what? I said I was going, I'm going to do this. I'm whatever. Let's go. They said table's yours, the recording live stage. So I decided, you know what? I'll get angry for one night about it. And then I had like days to prepare, but I was like, what I'm going to do? There are celebrity guests, yes, but there are also people who are artists, people who are authors, people who are cosplayer professionals that sell things and things. I was like, these people got stories. These people are going to talk. No one's going to have a panel for them or whatever. Let's find out who these people are. They're vendor. And so I got a hold of some people before it to schedule. I went around to everyone and I filled that up the whole time. Rachel helped me too. Her and I filled just an hour of just us saying stuff just to fill an hour. But I was like, you know what? Let's go with this. It can't be an empty table. And Carl, who runs PopCon, was like, I can't believe that table wasn't just sitting there empty like the whole way. Like, I'm so like, thanks for doing that and all. And that's kind of where my new show, the genesis of that was, because all the content I produced at PopCon Fort Wayne, they wouldn't have been relevant to my show. But it kind of made me more interested in being able to have these kind of people and have those kind of conversations and spin it into my own kind of thing. And that's where that came from. And I'm always thankful to Rachel for being my buddy at PopCon Fort Wayne, because when I saw her, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a fine weekend. And PopCon Fort Wayne for just doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, I was super excited because, like at PopCon, I waved their flag all over the place just because I love the convention, and the people that run it. Carl, if you're out there, hi Carl. Um, he's probably not. He's probably busy getting ready for PopCon, which is in like 2 weeks. So, yeah, the Fort Wayne show, I think it was just a matter of like the timing. It was right before Christmas, I think. And so it was a holiday season and people have got other plans and traveling and all that. So it wasn't highly trafficked, compared to the show that's in Indianapolis. But in some ways that was a blessing in disguise because then people like Brandon and I had the run of the place. Like we could just run around and just do whatever we wanted. And Carl was like, yeah, whatever, you know, do something. So it looks like people are doing something. So yeah, Brandon was constantly up on that stage, which would have been empty pretty much the entire weekend. We were supposed to have a panel. Nobody showed up for it. So that ended up turning into our Brandon and Rachel hour out on the stage instead. I was able to grab Barry Bostwick, who was one of the celebrity guests, and set him down for like a 20-minute interview because there was no one at this show. So it's like, if I can grab a hold of a celebrity and have a nice sit down chat with them, that's a win for me. So I got some great content out of it. So, it may have not been a huge moneymaker and maybe a quote unquote win for PopCon, but for people like us, it was great as far as being able to get content and make some connections with people. So
the indie PopCons will blend together in my memories as years go on, but the Fort Wayne one will stand out always.
And sorry, when I said horror story, that might have been unfair because wasn't about PopCon in that respect. I meant more in the sense that like you had to on the fly like help out as far as with Carl and everything, and like dealing with the fact that they needed some help there. And I thought it was interesting because of the fact that Brandon, that ended up helping you like come through and actually create a whole new show.
Right.
And Brandon Wentz, I also I'm going to throw you in here and just have you had to come up with anything creatively on the fly as far as like as you've grown, and like how have you adapted? What different things have happened that have changed how you do the show?
The big thing that's changed the way we do the show is that originally we were all around the same table. And when we got to a certain point where we had grown enough, we hired 2 new folks to be on the show. And both of them were not local. We had national auditions and picked the best people as opposed to the people that we found that were closest because they just had a better chemistry with the already established group. And so I had to learn some new tricks and learn some new equipment so that I could make it so that those 2 people recording, one in California, one in South Dakota, sounded like they were still in the room with us. And so that became a thing of testing audio, retesting audio, suggesting changes, sending them some equipment, so that when we introduce them, you can't tell a difference. It just feels like they are there with us in the room, as opposed to having really drastic quality of audio between the 5 of us.
We have another question here, and you kind of just dovetailed into that, Brandon Wentz, which is what microphones do each of you use? And I also want to throw in, how have you had to adapt with the pandemic and deal with that? Like you talked about sending packages to people.
Yeah, when we started, we were actually using the Samson R21, which is like a 3-pack of microphones for like $50. And we used those because the person who was helping me learn audio processing was like, there's a very thick line that you can live in where the processing you do will save you the money on a microphone. Now, there's a point where you want to get past a certain point, you're going to have to up, and we have nicer microphones now, but that first year we were using like $11 microphones and the audio quality was really nice. And yeah, I do have a It's not this microphone anymore, but I have a microphone, a recorder, and an arm that whenever we have a guest for a different show, I mail it to them with postage return, so they send it back to me. So it's just a little, hey, you're going to be on the show, and we want to make sure that you have the right sound quality. So here's the stuff to use, and I'll help you set it up.
Rachel or Brandon Peters?
I use for my microphone, I use the Shure SM58-LC. It's typically a microphone. It's one commonly used with like stand-up comics, things like that. But I like it a lot. When I started podcasting, though, I use a Snowball mic from Blue, which, lo and behold, I won an award for audio mixing and editing using that microphone.
Awesome.
And nobody believed me, and using Skype audio at the time. Like, but it's like I say, post-production is your friend. You can make yourself all about making yourself sound better. This microphone, no tech awards for this one yet, the upgrade, but upgrade a few years back, but this one works just fine. It's able to stand, can come out, but I can't tell good jokes with it, so that's the only problem. It hasn't gifted me those. But yeah, so that's what I use.
And how about you, Rachel?
I have used different things. We all of us have over the course as computers get old and have to be replaced, and dogs chew on things, which is dogs chew on things. No. So I mean, right now I'm using this headset that I'm wearing right here, which is a Jabra 65 or something. It's a really nice headset, noise canceling headphones and stuff. And I'm not sure exactly what all my other co-hosts use, whatever they have available to us, or they have available to them. Because when we started this, we started it with no money, so we had to use what we had. And throughout the years, so we have been able to upgrade. I've gotten a new laptop and new headset and stuff. So start out don't spend a lot of money starting out, especially because you don't know if you're going to enjoy doing this. So that's one of our biggest things that we tell people is don't spend a ton of money up front until you're sure this is something you're going to do long haul. And then you can start investing money into it. As far as the pandemic, nothing has absolutely changed because we did everything over the internet for years pre-pandemic anyway. So yeah, the only thing that changed for us pandemic wise is I took on the second show. That's the outcome of the pandemic for me.
I will say I have the opposite with the pandemic of Rachel, that I started not feeling like podcasting because I was working at home with a laptop open all day and doing all that, and it just kind of started me out. But I kind of went from not wanting a podcast, ending my old one, to a new one, and just wanted to do it all the time. So it was
for podcasting for me, it saved my mental health during the pandemic.
Oh, for sure. Still.
Yeah.
And then we got another question here where they're asking you guys, how do you handle critics or people who listen to your podcast and it's not their thing?
Fine.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay.
You just have to accept that people aren't going to like the exact same thing.
As long as they do move on and don't keep hate listening and stuff like that, it's fine.
Leaving a lot of complaints that aren't constructive. If somebody's just going to be trolling and hating just to hate, then you may have to deal with that. But yeah, otherwise it's like, I mean, there've been shows that I've like, oh, I'm going to give this a try, and I'll give them one or two shows, and I'm like, for whatever reason it's just not jiving with me, and I don't have to announce that I'm on my way out.
You don't have to tell everybody what you think of my show, Rachel.
Hey, I didn't leave. I got put in jail.
Yeah.
In podcasting jail. So
yeah. You gotta. I mean, you have to have. If you're putting something out in the world like that for everyone to see, you got to have some sort of thick skin. Don't too much. I mean, if someone's going overboard, you can stand your ground, but otherwise, just pay attention to the ones who do like you.
I spent 20 years of working retail before I started podcasting, so I've got skin so thick you wouldn't even know.
Yeah, it's just like any other art form. You know, you're going to have people who love what you do and hate what you do. And in the time when, you know, someone is super vocal about not liking, you just have to remember the people that have spoken up, loving the thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And since we are talking about all things geek here, what I mean, you kind of broached it early on, but like, what are your absolutely like favorite things that you love to geek out on, guys and gal? Let's be fair here.
I don't know if we got enough time left. When we started, like, we had like our tent pole fandoms that we can still go to even now, all these years later, because they're still producing content. You have Doctor Who, which there's plenty of content there, not just from TV, but Big Finish too. Thank you. And like Marvel was like the other big one, the MCU, which when we started was only, less than 5 years old at the time ish, thereabouts. But since then, we've introduced each other to different things. Either something new has come along, a new TV show or a new book series or something. When we started, like, I wasn't watching Once Upon a Time, and my co-hosts were like, we want to do an episode of Once Upon a Time. And I was like, okay, so this will give me a chance to learn about something. And then next thing you know, I'm binging the entire thing. Same thing with Supernatural. I'm now in the middle of, I just finished the 3rd Dresden Files book. Because my co-hosts are like, oh, you should read these books. So yeah, you do this long enough, at least, as far as geek culture is concerned, and your fandoms are going to explode. So yeah, there's not enough time left for for me to talk about that. But Doctor Who and like the MCU, those are like 2 of my big ones.
And the Brandons?
Let's
That's what it says.
Let's confirm with each
over
other
our
first.
doorway. That's what it says. Brandon. I'll go. Doctor Who, of course, and Russell, Rachel, and I know each other very well through the Who stuff a little bit. Oh, am I not supposed to tell them, Russell?
Spoilers.
Yes. I'm a huge film geek. So like, I know it's really like I like movies, but I like geek out over like film creators, like directors, things like learning like craft, technique, and stuff. But then that splits into other fans, like a big horror nut, like slasher films, like classic monster movies. Russell is a big Hammer horror fan. Could talk to you about that stuff a lot. James Bond. I like the travelogue spy. Star Wars, of course. Everybody's there with Star Wars in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, and I dabble in some like figurine collecting and stuff, but it's super specific. And also weird one, I like coffee table books, but they end up being film and TV stuff related. But I always am a sucker for coffee table books. I pick them up and things like that. So that's a weird thing. I don't say much.
I'm gonna jump because both of them have said all the things that I'm interested in.
Oh,
a question just popped up. I think it's super interesting.
Oh,
how do you prepare for a project that's not in a genre that you follow?
Oh,
Research.
Yeah,
I do, so especially for Gold Standard, because a lot of these movies I have never seen. A lot of them, yeah, there's a few where it's like, oh yes, I know this movie, like Gone with the Wind. Like everybody knows what Gone with the Wind, but I'd refuse to sit down and actually watch it until I had to for Gold Standard. But I've really thrown in my myself into doing internet research. I'm a huge geek when it comes to research anyway. But going in and finding like all the little documentaries on YouTube and interviews with directors and the stars and watching all the special features on the DVDs and stuff. The internet is your best friend for information.
Yeah, we do a lot of games that that are set in a very specific world. You know, we have a pirate game that's Rapscallion, so there's a lot of pirate lore. We have a superhero game. We have done games in Neverland. We've done games in post-apocalyptic future, and so a lot of it is immersion into books and movies of that genre, especially movies, because we are creating a podcast that we then cut down to make it, you know, feel like an episode of a TV show. Because it's, you know, the game is Monster of the Week. It's playing off of television tropes. And so a lot of it is just immersion into the style so that we make sure to carry that into the characters that they create in the NPCs and the world around them.
I started to say something to you, Brandon, and give you a hard time because, like, I know you're a huge Amazing Spider-Man fan and was going to hit you up as far as, well, actually, I'll open this up for all of you because we got Loki and everything that's happened with WandaVision as far as the multiverse that's opening up right now. What do you guys think?
I'm here for it.
Go crazy.
Yeah.
I am
Nuts.
so here for it.
Take the leash off. Just go whatever. Get wild. I want weird movies.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see the direction that they go. And I think that they're setting up some very nice groundwork to have a good next 10 years.
And Jason is saying, as a fellow Star Wars fan, he wanted to know as far as what's on Brandon's shelf back there.
Oh, well, over here, if you're Star Wars, right here I have.
Pew pew pew.
I have a couple shelves. So I use my shelves. I have like figurines and rando things and like bulky box sets of Blu-rays and DVDs that don't really go neatly on my other shelf. My YouTube followers have been begging me for a tour that I haven't given them because it's always a work in progress. I'm never finished. So how can I give them a tour? It's not finished. This is like my Doctor Who figurines. I am obsessed with Eagle Moss. They make these awesome They also do Marvel and Star Trek and Ghostbusters and Harry Potter, all sorts of stuff. But okay, I'm gonna come around. So I've got also hidden behind here. I have like mugs of some of the Doctors. I've got the 3rd Doctor, the 4th Doctor, the 5th Doctor, the 10th Doctor's under there. But then I have too many figures. Like I got to make more room. I've got a Lego TARDIS interior right here. Like some little things that hide in there, like these little guys. These are like mystery mini sets. Oh man.
I think everybody who watches this, either watching this live or on repeat later, if that's a thing, tweet at Brandon and say, make a YouTube video tour.
All right, here's
the tour.
Here's something for you here now that I doubt. I don't know if you have any YouTubers and stuff but here is vintage 1980s David Hasselhoff as Michael Knight from Knight Rider action figure. It was mine. I didn't buy it at some pawn or something like that, flea market, but that is mine. I had the car, but I think my parents
they got rid of Kit.
But yeah, I've got this is fun. This is from the movie Breakin'. These are action figures from, you remember the breakdance movie? And it comes with the broom that he danced with and magically. So yeah. And then I've got like Doctor Who figures that I haven't, because I don't have space right now. I haven't even got out of the box yet. This is the 5th Doctor's Castrovalva set where he's in the 4th Doctor's outfit because he just regenerated. It's got everyone's favorite Adric, Nissa and Tegan. But so that's a little tour. I don't know. I got like Michael Myers and Freddy and Jason stuff over there with Frankenstein.
You're just gonna have to do a proper video, Brandon.
Yeah. Well, I guess like next year here now, Brandon's basement. Sign up.
There you go.
Not really. I'm not selling myself on there, but that's something.
And Bonnie's saying in the chat,
Working on it, Bonnie. Working on it.
that everybody's going to start browsing eBay now.
So I know it's not the whole thing, Jason. Oh, we'll cap it off. Oh, come here. Teddy Ruxpin. My old Teddy Ruxpin that speaks satanically if you can get the tape player to work. He's like,
Bringing it back to audio. Yeah. When the batteries would run down on that thing, nightmares for our childhood there.
Always check your batteries and make sure everything's always plugged in, people, and turned on.
yes. So sorry to take this over, but thank you, Jason.
So any closing thoughts that you would like to share as far as your podcasts, information as far as how people can find you, those type of things?
I'm everywhere. Both personally and with the podcast, although I do a lot of the Five-ish Fangirl social media, at least as far as Instagram and Twitter is concerned. We all have a hand in our Facebook. It's really handy that we're able to share things really quickly. New trailers and stuff that maybe people don't catch, and if they were like, oh, I saw that, you shared that, like, hey, you're welcome. So yeah, you can look for the Five-ish Fangirls on Facebook, and then Gold Standards on Facebook and Twitter. And then of course both shows are anywhere you can find podcasts.
After you, Teddy.
All right. You can find my show, the BrandonPeters.show.com, anywhere podcasts are found. I have a YouTube channel. Just you're gonna type Brandon Peters Show podcast, because there's a football player from college that shared my name and took my thunder, even trended on the internet for one day. But my Twitter handle and Instagram handle is at Brandon4KUHD. I do have a Facebook page. All of them have their own little flavors to them. I kind of give specifics. If you like physical media, I might post a little more stuff I get for review and things on the Instagram page than the other ones. But yeah, my show has a promo video every Sunday and runs Monday through Friday. Maybe you'll like some of it, maybe all, maybe none. Maybe you can just subscribe. Who knows?
And you can find the Crit Show at thecritshowpodcast.com or any place you get podcasts. And then we also have a Twitch channel, twitch.tv/the Crit Show, where we do a weekly series where we play a different RPG for 8 sessions, 8 weeks in a row with guest players and guest GMs. So again, that's a big part of what we're doing, is getting people familiar with things that aren't D&D and Pathfinder.
And I'm going to actually plug Brandon and Bonnie, who is invisibly behind us right now. But they're both going to be, they're going to both be actually on a panel tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Time called Earplay and Friends, because they both have worked with a friend of ours company, Earplay. And they're doing some really cool, innovative things with audio and gamifying audio plays. So you should definitely check that out. It's interesting. And then for Rachel and Brandon Peters, if you don't know, Big Finish is actually going to be in. So Doctor Who fans will be in on Sunday, and we'll have actually 4 people in from the UK that will be on that panel. So check that out. All right, I want to thank you all for being part of this panel, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of the festival and check out some of the things that are going on. Thank you again, and Teddy. Bye, guys.
Guys, great panel.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, and Brandon, me and you get to talk about Earplay tomorrow.